You can feel it, even in the quiet moments. A sense that something in you is shifting, loosening, dissolving, as if an old inner structure no longer fits the shape of who you are becoming. You try to hold it together. You try to pretend that nothing is changing, yet the edges keep cracking. The life you built with so much effort begins to feel foreign, almost like a room whose air has grown too thin to breathe. You walk through familiar corridors of your mind and notice how the walls echo differently, how the colors seem faded, how the routines no longer carry the same meaning. Something inside you is preparing to break, not out of destruction, but out of necessity. There is a subtle confusion that comes with this phase. You wonder if you are the one falling apart, or if the world around you is simply losing its coherence. You look at your relationships, your ambitions, your habits, and see traces of a past self still clinging to you. It feels like wearing clothes that once belonged to another life. You try to adjust, to stretch them, to make them work, but the fabric resists because it was made for a version of you that no longer exists. Somehow you sense that the psyche is dismantling what has expired, not to punish you, not to hurt you, but to make room for what can finally breathe. There are moments when you feel the stirring in your chest, that quiet ache that tells you something is ending. You can almost hear a soft cracking underneath your thoughts, a door closing in the distance, a branch snapping under its own weight. You feel torn between holding on and letting go, unsure which direction will keep you whole. You try to calculate the right move, the right timing, the right strategy to maintain control. Yet, deep down, you know that control is not the point. This is not something the conscious mind orchestrates. This is something older, deeper, wiser than your plans. Sometimes the psyche whispers through discomfort. Sometimes it speaks through restlessness. Sometimes it erupts as chaos when you resist too tightly. You try to interpret the signs, to understand why a relationship cracks without warning, why a dream dissolves, why a path you were loyal to suddenly turns hollow. The surface seems random, almost cruel, but beneath it all there is a pattern unfolding, a rhythm that moves according to an inner law you cannot see yet. Something in you is outgrowing a former shape. Something in you is remembering its need to expand. Even if expansion requires that parts of you crumble, you might feel lost in this moment, lost in the forest of your own transition. The trees stand tall and silent, guarding secrets you are not ready to hear. You take slow steps on uneven ground, unsure whether you are walking toward dawn or back into night. And still, some small fire glows within, a faint ember that refuses to die. It flickers in the darkness to remind you that endings contain beginnings, that the psyche does not erase you when it destroys what you outgrow. It releases you. You are invited into a threshold now, a place where nothing makes perfect sense, a place where the past loosens its grip and the future has not yet spoken. You stand between who you were and who you are becoming, and this in between can feel unbearably fragile. But there is power here. There is clarity hiding behind the fog. If you stay, if you breathe, if you listen, you may discover that what is falling apart is only what can no longer carry your soul forward. And yet, beneath it all, something still calls your name. There is a reason this moment feels so unsettling. The psyche does not evolve through comfort. It evolves through shedding, through the slow unraveling of what has finished its purpose. You feel the tension because something within you is being asked to release a skin that once protected you. It held you together when you needed structure, when you needed identity, when you needed a sense of safety to navigate the world. But every skin has an expiration point, and when the soul begins to stretch beyond the limits of that old form, the psyche intervenes with a quiet certainty. It begins to dismantle what can no longer hold your growing truth. You may sense this dismantling as a subtle pressure, a heaviness that settles behind your eyes, a restless pulse under your thoughts, a familiar shape dissolving at the edges. There is a forest inside you where old paths have grown dark, where branches have fallen across trails you once walked without hesitation. You stand at the edge of this inner landscape and notice how the shadows move differently. The psyche feels like a guardian here, ancient and impersonal, sweeping its torchlight across forgotten corners. It gestures toward places where something has stagnated, places you avoided because they kept your old self intact. And beneath that stillness something stirs. The old personality, built from memories and survival patterns, begins to loosen. You feel grief because part of you thinks this is a loss. You feel fear because another part believes it will not know how to live without these familiar patterns. Yet there is also a strange sense of relief, like opening a window after a long night. The psyche seems to know when a chapter has reached its natural conclusion. It knows when a story has run out of breath. And when that moment arrives, it begins its work with or without your permission. This is why the process often feels like destruction. Not the violent chaos of a collapsing world, but the quiet disassembly of something that no longer fits. It is a sacred fire that burns away what cannot follow you into the next stage of your life. You may see this fire as a crisis, as an ending, as something unfair. But fire is also a purifier. It illuminates the contours of what you have been clinging to. It reveals the illusions you wrapped around your heart. It shows you the structure of your attachments and asks whether those attachments still nourish your spirit or hold it captive. In moments like this, your dreams may begin to shift. Symbols rise from the unconscious, like messengers emerging from deep water. A broken bridge, a closed door, a fading house, a river running faster than you can follow. These are not coincidences. They are reflections in the inner mirror, revealing the shape of what is being transformed. The psyche uses images because images bypass resistance. They pass through the rational mind and deliver truth straight into the soul. You feel the meaning even when you cannot put it into words. And if you listen closely, you may notice a quiet law moving beneath everything. The psyche refuses to let you remain in what diminishes you. It disrupts stagnation. It challenges false identities. It breaks the illusions you constructed to avoid your own depth. It may feel like betrayal, but it is devotion. The deeper self is loyal only to your growth. When you outgrow a relationship, the psyche withdraws your energy. When you outgrow a dream, it drains the color from it. When you outgrow a version of yourself, it closes the inner door so you cannot return. You stand at the threshold of this inner temple, feeling both the ache of loss and the promise of rebirth. The walls shimmer with symbols you have seen in forgotten dreams. Spirals of light, shadows moving across stone, a quiet river flowing beneath the floor as if carrying the stories you can no longer carry for yourself. You walk deeper into this space, and the air becomes still, almost reverent. Something in you knows you are not here to be punished. You are here to be renewed. Sometimes renewal requires a gentle surrender, a willingness to stop clinging to the ruins of an old identity. The psyche does not ask you to destroy yourself. It asks you to trust its timing. It asks you to recognize that what collapses has already completed its work. The forest changes when the season turns. The leaves fall not because they are worthless, but because the tree has grown enough to let them go. You are no different. And yet, beneath it all, the mystery lingers. A quiet knowing that this destruction is only the first movement of a larger transformation. Something waits on the other side of this threshold. Something shaped by the parts of you that have not yet spoken. Something that rises when the old has finally fallen away. You begin to feel the shift long before you understand it. It starts as a faint tremor under ordinary life, a subtle tension that makes simple moments feel strangely unfamiliar. You wake in the morning and something in the air feels different, although you cannot say why. You move through your day as if moving through a dream whose meaning hovers just beyond reach. The familiar textures of your world seem altered, softened at the edges, as if the psyche has begun to dim the lights around everything you have outgrown. You sense this without being able to name it, like noticing a quiet ache in the body without knowing the source. There is a silence beneath your thoughts where the change first takes shape, a silence that gathers weight. You catch yourself staring at the same places, the same routines, the same relationships, and feeling a slight distance from them, as though you are watching your own life from the other side of a thin veil. You try to re-engage, to revive the emotions that once guided you, yet they return faded. It is not that you no longer care. It is that something deeper than care is shifting beneath the surface. Your inner world begins to rearrange itself like a forest preparing for winter, withdrawing its sap so that new growth can be possible. As you move through this strange in-between, you start to notice moments of friction. Conversations that once flowed now feel heavy. Dreams that once inspired you now leave you hollow. Paths you once walked with certainty now feel like corridors that lead nowhere. The psyche is loosening the threads of your attachment, pulling gently at the seams of what no longer aligns with your inner truth. This pulling creates discomfort. It creates restlessness. It creates a subtle longing for something you cannot yet imagine. But the longing is a sign. It signals that the soul has begun its migration into new territory. In these moments, your emotions become both the messenger and the mirror. Fear rises, not because you are in danger, but because a familiar identity is dissolving. Sadness surfaces, not because you are losing something essential, but because the psyche is asking you to release the comfort of the known. You may even feel guilt for wanting more, guilt for changing, guilt for no longer fitting into an older version of your life. This is the shadowed part of the process, where the old self tries to cling to its remaining fragments. It resists the inner movement because it fears disappearance. Yet disappearance is not the truth. Transformation is. When Jung spoke of the individuation process, he described a tension that pulls the conscious self toward its deeper center. You can feel this pull now. It is not loud. It is not coercive. It is quiet and steady, like the slow turning of the earth beneath your feet. Something ancient within you begins to rise. It pushes upward from the unconscious like a seed breaking through soil. It does not ask permission. It simply grows. And as it grows, it creates pressure against everything that keeps you small, everything that keeps you repeating the same patterns, everything that keeps you tied to an identity that has already finished its cycle. You may see the signs in your dreams. A house you once lived in begins to crumble. A mirror reflects a stranger. A forest path forks into two directions, neither of which you recognize. These images are not accidental. They are the language of your psyche, revealing with precision what the conscious mind tries to ignore. You feel these symbols more than you understand them. They move through you like wind through trees, stirring something old and forgotten. They remind you that the unconscious always speaks first, long before the outer world reflects the change. There comes a moment when the pressure can no longer be dismissed. You begin to sense the threshold approaching, even if you do not know its shape. It feels like walking toward a door you have never opened, a door you both fear and long for. Your steps slow. Your breath deepens. The old self stands behind you like a shadow, watching, trembling, knowing that its role has reached its end. The new self waits in silence beyond the threshold, its presence subtle but undeniable. You cannot turn back. not because something forces you forward, but because something in you has already crossed. And in this quiet crossing, the psyche reveals its first truth. It destroys only what you have outgrown, so that you may remember who you are meant to become. There is a moment when the unraveling becomes unmistakable. You wake one day and feel as though some inner thread has slipped from its knot. The structure you relied on no longer feels stable. The rhythm you once followed loses its cadence. You try to step back into the old patterns, but the ground feels uneven. You feel a gentle collapse within you, the sensation of an identity losing its grip. And even though this collapse frightens you, it also carries a strange sense of clarity, as if the psyche is quietly removing everything that clouds your vision. Your emotions begin to surface with new intensity. Anger rises without warning, not because of external conflict, but because something is pushing from within. Anxiety flickers in your chest, not as a signal of danger, but as a reaction to the widening gap between who you were and who you are becoming. There is a heaviness in letting go of old roles, old dreams, old habits. Yet beneath that heaviness lies an invisible intelligence guiding the process. The psyche knows what must be released. It knows which inner walls must fall for you to breathe again. And so it begins its silent work. This is the phase where the shadow becomes more visible. You start noticing all the places where you stayed small to keep the peace. All the moments where you betrayed your own authenticity to maintain connection. All the years you spent living in a shape that was not fully yours. These realizations feel sharp, almost painful, as though a cold wind moves through the chambers of your soul. But this wind is cleansing. It clears the dust from forgotten corners. It reveals what you could not see while you were still entangled in the old structure. In this confrontation, you begin to sense the symbolic fire taking form. It burns not to destroy you, but to illuminate you. It burns through illusions, through excuses, through attachments that once felt necessary. You may resist this fire because it feels unpredictable. It threatens the stability you worked so hard to maintain. But the fire is part of the alchemy. Without it, the lead of your old identity cannot transform into something luminous. Without it, the gold of your deeper self remains hidden beneath layers of habit and fear. You walk through this fire in small ways at first. You notice the conversations where your voice trembles because it is telling the truth. You notice the decisions that suddenly feel effortless because pretending is no longer possible. You notice the relationships where you feel the quiet shift, where the energy no longer aligns with who you are becoming. Each observation is like walking deeper into a forest at night, guided only by the faint glow of your intuition. The shadows stretch and sway, but you keep moving because something in you trusts the path even without seeing it fully. Your dreams may intensify during this stage. You might see temples collapsing, rivers rising, doors slamming shut. These images are mirrors of your internal process. They show you what is ending. They show you what is shedding. They show you the boundaries the psyche is redrawing without your conscious consent. And sometimes they show you something new emerging in the distance. A mountain illuminated by dawn. A room filled with soft light. A staircase leading upward. These visions remind you that destruction is only the first half of transformation. There is a point where resistance becomes exhausting. You feel too tired to cling to what is dissolving. You feel too drained to pretend that nothing is changing. And in that exhaustion, something softens in you. A quiet surrender. You stop fighting the natural movement of your inner life. You stop negotiating with the psyche. You stop trying to force the old self to survive. This surrender is not defeat. It is the beginning of alignment. You step out of the collapsing structure and feel the cold air on your skin. You realize that the collapse has created space around you. Space to breathe. Space to listen. space to be. In this spaciousness, the psyche reveals a deeper truth. It does not destroy what you need. It destroys what limits you. It takes away only what cannot carry the weight of your unfolding. And as you sense this truth rising within you, like a slow dawn spreading across the horizon, you understand that the destruction is not the end. It is an opening into the self you have been growing toward all along. There comes a moment when the destruction reaches its quiet peak. You stand amid the inner ruins and realize that much of what once shaped your identity has fallen away. The walls that defined you are no longer standing. The roles you clung to have loosened their hold. You feel exposed, almost weightless, as if the old architecture of your life has dissolved into dust. This moment can feel frightening, yet it also carries a strange sense of purity. Without the noise of the old self, you can finally hear the deeper movement within. You feel the quiet pulse of something new, faint but steady, rising from beneath the rubble. This is where the psyche reveals its deeper rhythm. It begins to draw you inward, toward a center you may have ignored for years. You feel pulled toward a place where the noise of the world cannot reach. At first, this pull feels unfamiliar. It asks you to step away from your usual distractions, your old ways of coping, your habitual escapes. It asks you to sit with the truth of who you are when no one is watching. And when you do, you notice a different kind of silence. Not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of presence. A presence that feels ancient, like a temple hidden beneath your consciousness. In this inner temple you encounter reflections you once avoided. The mirror here does not show you the mask you wore. It shows you the face beneath the mask. The raw emotion, the longing, the strength you did not claim, the wounds you did not acknowledge. You stand before this mirror and feel the full weight of your humanity. It is not a pleasant reflection, yet it is a true one. And as you continue to look, something softens in your chest. The resistance begins to crumble. You start to understand that the psyche never meant to punish you. It meant to reveal you. With each breath you take in this space, you feel the scattered pieces of your inner world beginning to move again. They do not snap back into old patterns. They rearrange themselves in new ways. Ways that feel more honest. Ways that feel more aligned. It is as if an unseen hand is gathering the broken fragments of your identity and placing them in a new constellation. One that reflects your growth instead of your fear. One that reflects your truth instead of your past. You may not understand the shape of this new constellation yet, but you feel its coherence. A quiet harmony rising from within. During this stage, the world around you may appear both familiar and strange. You walk through the same streets, yet they feel lighter. You speak to the same people, yet something in the dynamic has shifted. You no longer respond from old wounds. You no longer shrink to fit the expectations of others. You feel the beginning of a new posture, a new center of gravity. It is subtle, almost delicate, like a candle flame protected cupped in your hands. But you sense its power. This flame is the symbol of your becoming. It flickers with the promise of a self no longer bound by outdated stories. Your dreams continue to speak to you, but their tone changes. Instead of images of collapse, you may start to see images of ascent. A staircase spiraling upward toward a hidden room. A river clearing after a storm. A door opening to reveal a field lit by early morning light. These symbols carry a quiet assurance. They tell you that something in your psyche has completed its descent and is now preparing for its slow return to the surface. They remind you that transformation is not a single moment, but a sequence. Descending into darkness, breaking open, rising again with new understanding. As you feel this inner rising, you become aware of a new strength within you. A strength that is not based on control or certainty. a strength born from honesty, from humility, from the willingness to face yourself without turning away. This strength moves gently. It does not rush you. It does not demand mastery. It simply holds you, guiding you toward the next version of yourself. You begin to trust the process in a way you could not before. What once felt destructive now feels purposeful. What once felt like loss now feels like liberation. And in this quiet liberation you begin to sense the truth that has been unfolding through every stage. The psyche destroys what you outgrow, so that you may remember the self you were always meant to embody. You feel this truth settling inside you, like a calm dawn spreading across an inner landscape that has finally cleared. Something in you is ready to rise. Something in you is ready to breathe. Something in you is ready to return to the world with a deeper light. You stand now in the quiet aftermath of everything that has unfolded within you, and the air feels different. The weight that once pressed against your chest has lightened. The pressure behind your thoughts has softened. The ruins of the old self lie scattered around you, yet they no longer frighten you. You can finally see them for what they are, the remnants of a chapter that could not carry you any further. There is a strange peace in acknowledging this, a gentle recognition that the destruction was not chaos, but choreography. Every fracture, every collapse, every unraveling, all of it guided you toward this clearing, this calm space where your deeper nature begins to rise without resistance. As you breathe into this new space, something in your awareness shifts. You start to feel the contours of an inner landscape you had almost forgotten existed. A place where the noise of the world fades and the voice of your psyche speaks with clarity. You sense a river flowing quietly beneath your consciousness, steady and unhurried, carrying the stories you no longer need. Its movement soothes you. Its rhythm reminds you that nothing essential is lost. The river takes only what has completed its purpose. You stand beside it and feel its cool presence wash through you, cleansing the last traces of the identity that once kept you confined. In the distance you see the forest of your inner life regaining its shape. The branches that once loomed heavy with old memories have shed their weight. The paths that were covered in shadows are beginning to brighten. Light filters through the canopy in soft streaks, illuminating the ground at your feet. This light does not overwhelm. It arrives gently, as if respecting the tenderness of your emergence. It reveals just enough for your next step, nothing more. You feel grateful for this. You no longer need the entire map. You only need the present moment, the clarity of each breath, the honesty of each choice. You sense now how the psyche was never working against you. It was working with you, even when you misunderstood its methods. It dismantled the structures that hid your truth. It loosened the attachments that kept you living in circles. It called you into the night so you could learn to see without depending on the old light. This realization settles into your body with surprising ease. Every fear you felt, every confusion, every moment when you believed you were breaking, they all point to the same truth. You are being shaped, refined, prepared for a deeper alignment with yourself. As this clarity grows, the symbols that have accompanied you begin to transform. The fire that once felt destructive now appears as a guiding flame. You see it burning in the distance, warm and inviting, no longer consuming what you love. Instead, it illuminates your path. It reveals the strength you forged by walking through the heat of change. You approach this flame and feel it respond to your presence, steady and alive. The light does not blind you. It wraps around you like a mantle, affirming that you have entered a new stage of your becoming. You walk deeper into this inner landscape and notice a temple rising from the horizon. Its structure is simple, almost ancient, built from the experiences that shaped you and the insights that healed you. You approach its entrance and feel the threshold beneath your feet, cool and solid. This temple is not external. It is the architecture of your psyche, the place where your conscious self meets the deeper currents of the unconscious. You step inside and feel the stillness gather around you, warm and complete. In this space you sense the presence you have been seeking, the deeper self, the quiet intelligence that guided every step of your transformation. The air inside this temple is filled with a soft glow. No harsh lines, no sharp shadows, only the gentle blending of light and darkness, acknowledging the wholeness of who you are. You breathe and feel your chest expand with a peace you cannot explain. You are not the person you were. The edges of your old identity have dissolved. The stories you carried have loosened their grip. You are standing in the center of your being, unguarded, and yet you feel protected in a way you never felt before. You feel the truth of your own presence. You feel the quiet strength that has been forming beneath every layer of your growth. In this stillness, you begin to understand why the psyche destroys what you outgrow. It is not to leave you empty. It is to clear a path for your expansion. It is to make space for a life that matches who you are becoming. It is to lift you out of cycles that kept you repeating the same wounds. It is to return you to the center where your intuition speaks with clarity and your decisions move from truth rather than fear. You look around the inner temple and feel the subtle pulse of renewal. The destruction is no longer the story. The rebirth is. The night is no longer the focus. The dawn is. The psyche is not a force of chaos. It is an architect of transformation, shaping you with more precision and love than you imagined. You have entered a new inner season, one shaped by growth rather than survival. As you step back toward the threshold, the world outside begins to shimmer with possibility. The same streets, the same faces, the same responsibilities, yet none of them feel the same. You sense the quiet expansion in your awareness. You sense the deeper stillness anchoring your choices. You sense the new self rising from within, steady and grounded. The psyche has cleared the way. The psyche has rebuilt the foundation. The psyche has guided you back to the center where you finally feel whole. And as you return to your life with this new presence, you feel the final truth settle softly, like a whisper carried by morning light. What once felt like destruction was the beginning of your awakening. The breaking was the opening. The loss was the clearing. And everything you outgrew was released so that a deeper version of you could finally arrive. You return from this inner journey with a quieter heart. The noise that once clouded your thoughts has softened into a distant murmur. You feel a calm awareness rising in its place, steady and grounded, like the gentle glow of dawn after a long night. The ruins you left behind no longer call to you. They rest in peace, honored for the role they played, yet clearly belonging to a chapter you have already outgrown. You breathe and sense how much space has opened within you. A spaciousness that does not feel empty. A spaciousness that feels alive. You stand inside this new inner landscape and recognize that you are no longer held together by old fears or old stories. You are held together by presence. As you move through the world in the coming days, you may notice the subtle shifts. The way your breath deepens without effort. The way your shoulders relax when they once tensed in anticipation. The way your mind grows quieter when it once spiraled into questions without answers. These shifts are not random. They are signs of alignment. Signs that the psyche has finished its work of dismantling what no longer served you. You may feel moments of uncertainty, small echoes of the old self trying to understand this new spaciousness. Let them come. Let them pass. They are reminders of how far you have traveled. There will be moments when the world tests this new clarity. Old patterns may try to return. Old roles may try to reclaim you. Old voices may whisper their familiar doubts. but you are not the same. You can meet these moments with a gentleness that comes from understanding. You can meet them with a calm that comes from inner truth. The psyche has taught you that nothing real is removed. Only the layers that covered your essence were taken away. You feel this essence now, subtle yet unmistakable, like a soft light glowing from the center of your being. It guides you without pressure. It speaks without noise. It is simply there. As you continue to walk forward, notice how your inner landscape responds. The river flows more clearly. The forest feels open. The flame burns steadily. The temple stands in quiet reverence. Each symbol that accompanied you through this transformation now becomes part of your daily awareness. Not as dramatic visions, not as grand revelations, but as gentle reminders that you are connected to something deeper than the surface of your life. This connection is not fragile. It does not depend on perfect circumstances. It is woven into your presence. It is the thread that remains when every other thread has been released. And so you step into the days ahead with a soft certainty. You know now that endings are not punishments. They're invitations. You know that destruction is not chaos. It is preparation. You know that the psyche is not your enemy. It is the quiet architect of your becoming. As you breathe into this truth, you feel a warmth spreading through your chest, subtle and soothing. A warmth that tells you that you are not lost. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are simply unfolding. Carry this awareness gently. Let it settle. Let it deepen. Let it guide the choices you make and the silence you keep. And when you feel the first hint of fear returning, remind yourself of what you have already lived through. Remind yourself of the fire you walked through. Remind yourself of the ruins you survived. Remind yourself of the dawn that rose from within you. You are no longer shaped by what ended. You are shaped by what emerged in its place. And now, as you step back into your life, feel this truth resting quietly in your breath. What you outgrew has been released. What remains is yours. What awaits is aligned. And the path ahead unfolds with a calm light that feels like home.